videos after 30 days.
Okay.
Right. We have to think about what the impact is. They've already started doing some older videos. It's annoying, but still. Okay, so welcome everybody to Talking Niagara this morning. It's Tuesday, 1st of April, April Fool's Day. So, yeah, I don't think we're going to. But, well, actually, also, the other thing is that carbon tax on fuel went, the price on fuel went down 20 cents today.
It did.
According to reports on a GTA radio station this morning.
Well, that's pretty cool. That's kind of a good news thing, isn't it, for the average person?
Yeah. Obviously, the rebate is gone as well, but
yeah. But you know what? The average, I think it's better in the long run. Maybe we can get rid of a huge government bureaucracy that took care of this. This will save us money because every time they talk about the carbon tax, they never include the cost of the bureaucracy that runs it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And that always bothers me because every new tax like this that you develop, you have to cost money to collect it, right?
That's right. Yeah.
You know,
that's like here's something else. Like I heard this. I don't know if anyone else has heard this yet, and I haven't looked at any confirmation that Elon Musk will step down on, I think, day 130 from his Doge position. I don't know if anyone else has heard that yet, but I don't even know if it's true, but I've heard that.
There's a lot of stories out there about that type of thing. I wouldn't be surprised to hear that at all. Good morning, Mike.
Yes. Well, if anyone else has any information about that, we appreciate
I suspect it was only a temporary thing in him being involved in the Trump government anyway, because you think about it, he's got a business to run. The business is suffering without him.
Well, there's also been an unsigned letter from Tesla, somewhere in Tesla, that has asked that Elon Musk step down from being a CEO of Tesla, or choose one or the other, because his work with Doge has put a lot of pressure on Tesla. Tesla sales are down everywhere, and what they want to do is get back to business. Tesla cars are one of the best electric cars there are out there, and right now the cars are being tainted by being Tesla, and we find a lot of people looking for alternatives to Tesla now, or not even buying them. I disagree vehemently with anyone who damages or
absolutely
tax, because everyone has to remember that the cars are built by ordinary people.
Yeah,
basically they've got a job.
Oh yeah, people have got jobs, rely upon that job to actually, they build cars. It's a good industry to be built, build work on. Yeah, you don't attack an industry just because you dislike Tesla. Dislike Musk.
His tenure would be probably limited anyway, because we know that Trump does not like to share the spotlight with anyone, and is profoundly suspicious of anyone that does take the spotlight away from him.
Yeah,
his Elon's time in government may not have been.
I think it was probably planned that way all along.
Possibly. We don't know. Elon definitely had some fun, but his idea, he claims to have saved $1 trillion, is probably much less than that. There's no independent verification of the claims that they've made, and we've already known that the idea of the Social Security being a Ponzi scam is way overstated.
Yeah.
When we find out that the Social Security works at 99+% efficiency, and the people they claim are getting millions of dollars that Trump was claimed, it was just a lie and a fabrication.
Well, with any of these benefit systems, there are always people who figured out how to cheat the system, right? But the good thing about what they've done in America is they put in the checks and balances to ensure that those are kept to a minimum.
Yes. Yeah. So there's already oversight on these things.
Yeah.
And the claims that he's made about even federal employees being retired and the slow process of it, well, that's there for a particular reason. And it has nothing to do with the amount of time it takes an elevator to get from one place to another in these huge limestone mines where they keep all these records, these private records. So there's been a lot of very huge amount of misinformation about all of this. And his claims that he's saved so much money are dubious, to say the least.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, the reason why I put that out there is I heard that, but I haven't heard any confirmation yet.
Well, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me because he came on late in the campaign, so to speak. I think he was, I got the sense of impression that that Musk was only there for a short period. When you think chopping jobs is fun and being super PACs that fund government, you get what you get. It is not right to target this guy's company, but he's asking for it. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And
you want to protest, sell whatever stock you have in the company. Do protest that way, or don't buy the car, if you wish, but don't damage anything.
Don't set dealerships on fire and things like that, because a dealership on fire has got somebody, like your car in it, right?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
And let's put it this way: are you not going to buy a Volkswagen if it's the best deal just because it was Hitler's idea back in the late 30s to have a?
I wouldn't buy a Volkswagen, and it's to do with the diesel scam more than anything else. But that's the reason I wouldn't buy a Volkswagen.
Well, it turns out that other car companies were doing the same thing.
I know. They weren't the only one.
First was the first one busted, but we find that the same sort of thing was happening in other car companies.
But you see, what bothers me about them is the fact that they just flat out lied about it, whereas other companies, admitted to doing it.
Well, they had to after Volkswagen got busted. So
yeah,
but that's just the thing. Yeah. So basically, Musk should just get out of government. He's not suited for it one bit. He's got to get out and get back to running his companies and hopefully doing that efficiently enough to employ people and keep employing people, that kind of thing. If he wants to serve America, that's what he can do. He can use his strengths as a businessman or a tech guy that's able to bring high tech people into a certain area. So he can get his rocket ships going. He can get his Tesla up and going. He can serve the American public in that way. But government is not what his forte is, obviously.
Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. All right. So where are we? Moving on. Okay. So bikes for farmers ready to roll again. Farm workers. I mean, not farmers. Farm workers. Interesting. So they've been running this for quite some time. Basically, collect old bikes, get old bikes, go through a check. They've got people who refurbish bikes and sell them to farm workers.
Yeah, this is a program that's been going since 2020, and it's an initiative from the Gateway Community Church Outreach. What they do is they get.
It's actually been going longer than that, Dave. It's been going since 2015. The outreach thing has happened in 2020 to actually enhance the program.
Yeah, the outreach part of it. Yeah. So what they try to do is to get a bunch of volunteers together, get some bikes, buy some used bikes, fix them up. If they can't fix them up, they use them for parts, and they provide these bikes to farm workers for $25, which is not much at all, since a tire practically costs a good tire is like, well, $15 at least. Anyway, so
yeah.
So what they do is they refurbish these. They don't give them away. They sell them for $25 to the farm workers. That's a good idea, because if you get stuff for free, you automatically devalue it in your head.
Yeah. The other thing I wonder about these is many of these farm workers are migrants. Have they considered buying the back off of the farm workers at the end of season to get, because the complaint is they don't have enough bikes to actually repair to which is why they delayed this season coming out.
I think a lot of them would be stored by the farmers. Like if you want your farm laborers to come back, your good ones coming back from Jamaica or Honduras or the Dominica, wherever else they come from in the different areas of the Caribbean or Central America. If you're a farmer and you expect to get that same farm laborer back, I don't think it would be a big deal for you to store that bike for them once they've bought it.
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. Also, but a thought occurs to me that some of those guys will also be taking bikes back to their country of origin, wherever that is, because maybe they've got people back there that might need a bike.
Possibly. That's possibly, but they would have to pay for the transport of that bike.
Of course.
And yeah, so that's a possibility. But I would think that most of them would store the bike up here because if they intend to return, they're only paying $25 for it, and they might be able to sell the $25 bike to the next farm laborer that comes up. Who knows? But or sell it back to, or just give it back to the outreach, the farm bike.
Yeah, sell it or give it back to the outreach. If it's like you use the bike, you sell it for $10 back or something. Would be a good idea.
Possibly, it's a low price thing, and it's actually kind of a good news story with all the BS we're facing right now and the world strife. Here's a community, Gateway Community Church, seeing a need that the farm laborers, and anytime you drive down there, you'll see the farm laborers on bicycles. Sometimes I wish they put a light on them at night, because
that's another.
They're supposed to. Now, when the Gateway gets them, they put reflectors and stuff on them to make them safer. But there are some bikes out there that are like, sometimes I'm wondering, because suddenly I see a guy on a bike when I'm driving down there, and luckily I did see them.
Yeah.
But they need those bikes, because when they have their off days or off hours, they can get on their bike and go travel to another farm and visit friends.
Not just that, it's about moving from field to field when they need to.
No, they get transportation from the farmer for that. When the bikes are just completely for leisure, basically, that they use the bikes. What?
I've actually seen them down in Niagara on the lake when I've driven down there, moving from field to field.
Well, maybe that's a preferred way they do that. And in that case, the farmer would provide the bike for them if that's what he wants them to do. He or she wants them to do.
I don't know. I don't know the context, of course. I'm just driving by and seeing the bike in use.
Yeah. But mostly they're for the guys for their off hours, so they can travel to a grocery store maybe get a couple of cans of beer or
whatever it is they want to do in
beers.
their spare time. Yeah, I get it. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah, because definitely they want to get off the farm from time to time. So I thought this was a very positive article. Now
No,
they had a bit of a problem this year because they couldn't get enough bikes.
Yeah.
Now this makes me wonder. People are hanging on to the roll bikes because they can't buy new ones, and it's hard for them to get bikes. Usually they get them donated. This time they had to have a procurement process, and they were able to get 15 bikes. But still, when you think of, there's got to be a lot of bikes that can be, but what I think is people are just not buying bikes because they can't afford them, or keep holding on to their own.
Interesting thing is the price of bikes. If you go to somewhere like Canadian Tire, you've seen the price of bikes has been going steadily upwards. It used to be you could get a cheap bike for about $100. Now you're not getting any change out of $500.
Yeah.
Well,
I bought a bike for about $220 some years ago. It's a pretty good bike, but I didn't use it much, and I gave it to my son, and he started to use it, then didn't use it much, and then sold it.
Yeah.
Sold it for $200, almost the same as what I bought it many years later. But that was during the COVID time when when people were buying a lot of used things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So good news in a way, like it's always good to actually keep local things, local things well advertised, well out there, right? Morning, Aaron.
Good morning, Green Party candidate Karen Fraser. Good morning.
I may have to vote for Karen.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a bad idea, really.
Well, right at the moment, I can't. I've never voted for the Liberals. I'm not really a fan of the Liberals. Can't see myself supporting Poilievre's Conservatives right now. Sorry, Tony. But and again, it's where we sit right now.
Well, Andrea Kaiser may have a good shot at unseating Tony Baldinelli. I don't think she will, but I think it'll be it could be a eyebrow raiser about how many votes she does get because of the current wind at the back, the sales, the Trump wind behind the sales of the Liberal Party right now.
Also, the fact that we lost 30,000 people from Fort Erie in this riding changes a lot about how we consider what this constituency is. So we don't know. We're into new ground.
Yeah, we'll see because of the realignment of the ridings. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. And both parties will have lost, both the Liberals and we just talked about those parties. They would have lost fervent supporters within the Fort Erie part of the riding. So, it'll affect both parties. Right.
It seems here that we were very comfortable with the people we know. Look at Wayne Gates won decidedly.
Yeah.
And that was when the Conservatives had the wind at their back. The Ontario Conservatives had the wind at their back. And nevertheless, our own Wayne Gates, who is an NDP guy, comfortably won the seat. Yeah. I mean, much more, I think, than he has in other times. So we seem to be comfortable with the guy we have.
Yeah, I think that was a mark of who was selected against him, and the fact that said, councillor doesn't have a lot of support on city council.
But also the Conservatives' idea of limiting exposure of their candidates to debates and to the news.
Yeah, that doesn't help. Yeah.
Poilievre is doing the same thing right now. He's limiting. He's he's favoring certain news outlets and restricting others, and restricting his own particular candidates to news agencies. That's what I heard anyway, which wouldn't surprise me, because the media is usually a little more kind to conservatives than they are to others for some reason. So they have limited their exposure to the media, which might backfire this time.
I think it is, and the other thing that I think is backfiring as far as Polyev is concerned, he's now sounding like a bit of a scratched record. You know, he's dealing with we just if you think about it, we just had carbon tax go down today, and he's still carbon tax carney is what his current record is, right?
Yeah, but I don't agree with that at all. I think the Polyev is changing their narrative right now. It's a little bit late, but they're changing their narrative. They're focusing more on the existential threat of Trump. Of course, we don't know how that's going to play out until April 2nd, when Liberation Day comes. And
Liberation Day.
Trump dumps a lot of so-called retaliatory tariffs here and there, all over. So Polyev has to change his message. Right now, I see both parties promising this and promising that, tax breaks here, tax breaks there. Even Jagmeet Singh is jumping in with tax relief on this or that kind of thing. Jagmeet Singh is going to be a sorry loser in this next election if they don't change their narrative a little bit better.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so yes, I know exactly what Karen said. Yes, 100,000 people population. You see, the trouble is what was happening is Niagara Falls, Niagara on the Lake, and Fort Erie was making more than 150,000, making this a very big riding. The 100,000, we can do that in Niagara Falls alone, let alone Niagara on the Lake. My view would have been that Niagara, if they were putting, Niagara on the Lake with only 20,000, they needed to join with something. They should have made a Niagara. Should have made St. Catharines north, everything north of the QEW, plus Niagara on the Lake. Had Niagara Falls as an independent one and joined and merged, Fort Erie with Niagara Center. Because that would have brought the 100,000, and then put Thorold in with St. Catharines South. But hey,
I don't know. They revisit this every 10 years apparently.
Yep,
to readjust it.
Yeah,
we have.
And it's a mark of how the population in Niagara has changed over the last 10 years, right?
And Carney said he will not be happy until the carbon tax hits $1 per liter. Where did you get that, Karen? Because he's
just taken it off 20 cents today.
Yeah. So maybe in previous times he has said that $1 a liter, but he's obviously lost some of his environmental wherewithal, and now the carbon tax is reduced. He signed it in the same kind of way that Trump did. He signed it, and then he kind of showed everybody he did in a very Trump-like ceremony. I remember seeing it on TV. I'm pretty sure I did.
Trump-like ceremony.
Yeah, where they have the thing in front of him and he signs it and he shows everybody he signs it. So
yeah. Well, but that's not. Presidents have done that for years. It was Reagan used to make a big thing about signing papers.
Yeah, but
he always signed them in front of the press, often in front of the Senate.
Yeah, I wonder if Kearney's using a Sharpie, like Trump does.
I think today to actually do it, you've got to use a Sharpie, because then you can pick it up and say, "Look, my signature."
Yeah, it could be. But in any case, in any case, going back to the farm thing, it was a really good thing that they did that. The Gateway Community Church has done that. I thought that was a very positive thing to lead off the day.
All right, moving on. Trump is saying he's seeking ways to serve a third term as president. I think the constitutional balances were there for a reason, and they came in after President Roosevelt was elected 4 times in a row, because sometime after Roosevelt died, they kind of went, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe we should limit to 2 terms. I think the 2-term idea is taken on. There's a lot of people who are looking elsewhere in the world at the possibility of 2-term limits.
Well, Trump, after Roosevelt won his 4th election, this threw shivers down the spine of the Republicans, who worked very, very hard to make sure that there was only a 2-term limit. It took them 3 years to do it, a lot of money and a lot of cajoling and whatever. But the Republicans were the ones that were afraid of a popular leader, like FDR was extremely popular. People loved FDR in the day. If you read stuff, people would have his picture in the barbershop, picture in the grocery stores, pictures at home. The average person loved the guy, and that scared the Republicans. And once the swing of power came their way a bit, they were able to lobby hard and get a constitutional amendment, the 22nd, I think it is.
It is 22nd, yeah.
Where they limit the president to 2 terms. And if you go all the way back to 1804, you can't even become a vice president if you're not qualified to be not entitled to be the president. So this idea that Trump thinks that they'll put Vance up for president and Trump as vice president, and then just switch roles after they get into power, like Putin did back in the early 2000s with one of his guys, that won't work either, because way back in 1804 they disqualified that as a way of doing becoming president. So they tried to stop all the and like I said, so Trump figures, and a lot of his people figure there's got to be loopholes and all kinds of other things in the Constitution that says you can't do you can do more than 2 terms. Now, one of their arguments is, that means 2 terms in a row. So Trump can do another term in a row. So he can do 1 term, lose a term, and then do 2 terms in a row, because you're allowed to do 2 terms in a row. But it's convoluted logic they're using.
Yeah.
Now the problem here is he's got a yes men group of Republicans that will not fight this.
But again, I know he put them there, and he put them there with the aim in mind that they would serve him well in the future. But and I'll repeat that, do not count upon the judiciary to assist you in this.
Yes, and he's already begun to attack the judiciary in a number of different ways, trying to impeach a judge that was doing what that judge was supposed to do, a judge that was first appointed by a Republican, by the way. Yeah. And we still have quietly in among the Republican Party, old Reagan type Republicans that won't pop their heads up. They disagree with Trump. They go along with it because he has the power to persuade the populace. But there's a lot of Reaganite type Republicans still embedded in the party that won't go for something like this. But then they also know that their careers would be crushed if Trump turns on them and lobbies against them. So there's it all boils down to if the Republican Congress and Senate have the backbone to stand up to the Constitution, and we'll see if that's see if they will do that. But that's still a
But
couple.
at the end of the day, it's the Supreme Court that the impact of putting in conservative judges into the Supreme Court is that they will be conservative, as in they will hold to the letter of the Constitution.
Yeah, there's a lot of the conservative judges are more likely to be constitutional purists that will not overly interpret the founding fathers the Constitution. They won't overly interpret it and get variations of it.
And they'll look at the 22nd Amendment and look at any decisions that have been made relating to the 22nd Amendment, of which, of course, there are few, and tend to apply it in the spirit of the 22nd Amendment, and therefore deny.
Yeah, there's another theory here, though, that Trump keeps this going, and his party wants to pursue the idea that he can become a president again to avoid the impression that he's going to be a lame duck president, particularly in his last year of service. Once you're a lame duck president, fewer and fewer people pay attention to you and are looking forward to the next president. To avoid the idea that he might become lame duck president, they will pursue the myth that he can become the president again in 2028. This is just a theory that somebody's put out there. I'm not sure that that's anything to do with it. I think Trump's an opportunist, and if he sees a weakness, he'll drive the wedge into it, and he'll lie. He'll lie like he always lies about, like he did about Canada. 200. See his lies, like he says that Canada gets $200 billion off the U.S. every year, that they support Canada. It's more, the trade imbalance is more around 60 billion, and that's all due to oil. Things like that he just kind of lies.
Mike is basically saying he's seeking a way to call martial law. Come on, get with it. Get with the program, is what Mike is saying.
It's all going to depend on what kind of cooperation he has, and it's chilling to me how the Republicans are just falling in line and they're totally afraid of the guy. What does that mean? And if they start attacking the judiciary and the judiciary becomes afraid of them and want to keep their jobs, then they're going to fall in line. And we found already law firms refusing a lot of legal work that would be against the Republicans or Trump because they don't want the fallout to happen. Already the fear factor is going through.
Well, to be quite honest, I think that you'll also have law firms that will happily go up against the Republicans.
Well, the trend is away from him, and that is, and of course they're looking at survivability. They don't want, well, for one thing, they don't want death threats, which they'll get.
Yeah.
But they also want to be. Yeah. Okay.
But again, people like the Innocence Project will still continue.
We'll see about that. We'll see. There's a lot of pressure, a lot of fear building up, at least the precursor to fear. And that bothers me when you have Republicans hiding and not willing to say the truth. Like that whole idea of the Signal app and the Republicans that they had on the news that I saw, who were asked, what about this? All they said was Biden, Biden, Biden. It was a very successful thing. The world is safer. But they wouldn't answer the question, you released information, secure information through Signal. Like, that's problematic. It put at risk the pilots and everything else, but they will not answer that question. The only one that has was that I know of is Rubio, who said it was a bad mistake and somebody made a mistake. And so they're and all the Republicans do is then first they went after the reporter, and when they couldn't make that work, then they just start saying Biden, Biden, Biden. We're in this mess because of Biden, but it had nothing to do with what happened, the Signal thing.
Yeah,
they just looked for
and Signal, if anybody hasn't heard of it, is actually an app that's just similar to WhatsApp. You can actually it offers end-to-end encryption of messages, so people from outside can't break it. But you kind of get group chats for up to 1,000 people, and group calls for up to 40 people. So clearly they were in a situation where they were a group chat going with these journalists.
Well, they included one journalist in this particular chat, which they should not have. But this would not have happened if they used the secure channels that are supposed to be used for military action. Yeah, they wouldn't have had this problem.
Exactly. You're using an open source, and nothing wrong with open source software, by the way. You're using open source software, a messenger app that may well be encrypted for those that are in the group, but it's about who you include in the group. And if you're going to include, probably the group was set up by the prior government or an earlier government of still. Dave? That's the problem about this, right? Okay, so where are we? Mr. Wheeler. It looks like we've had our. I wish these internet suppliers would deal with the 7 o'clock, 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock rise in people who are utilizing the system, because that's what's the problem behind this. Is suddenly everybody's logging on between 7 and 8, and internet usage goes up while we're on air, and that's what often kills us. I thought it was better. I thought we would be better with StreamYard than we were with OBS, but it doesn't seem to have been, on occasions it doesn't seem to be the case, right? Okay, here's Dave again. Morning, Dave again. Right. I was just saying that we used to use OBS which was where it streamed all through my computer. Now we're using StreamYard, which streams through a computer, a server, but we don't seem to necessarily be any better with these dropouts.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's I don't have that problem when I'm on the other.
If you're doing Zoom for a meeting, you don't have the issue. I think it's the third layer of streaming a broadcast off of it.
Oh, possibly, yeah.
Yeah. And I thought it would be better than using Zoom, because the problem with Zoom is, in order to do it, we'd have to go onto Zoom, and then from Zoom we have to go to OBS, and then OBS I'm putting it back out. So we're streaming twice, if you know what I mean. Streaming to my computer for us to talk, and then streaming from my computer for us to put the video on Facebook.
Yeah. Right.
And this was better insofar as, whilst we can both see the same, screen here, we're not streaming twice. The responsibility is all at the back end for StreamYard to connect to wherever it connects to. Right, but we still get dropouts. Okay. Canada is expecting a smaller hit from Trump's global tariffs. Right. This is what the New Brunswick Premier is saying after he met with, after she met with the Prime Minister.
I was just looking here. I'm almost. I'm going back. I looked up the Elon Musk thing. He says, "I'm almost done, Elon Musk, to quit Doge and leave Washington D.C. after $1 trillion in U.S. government cuts," which is dubious, as I said. So it is true, apparently. So it says, "Is Elon Musk planning to step down from the Department of Doge?" Recently made a stunning remarks about stepping down from Doge role came amid nationwide protests against his electric car company. Tech billionaire Elon Musk revealed to date that he's plans to ditch the U.S. U.S. president. No, I don't think so. Levi. Yeah, he's gonna. Anyway, he's gonna.
I think it was planned. I think it was planned all along.
I think it wasn't planned. He was going to stay there as long as he could get away with it, but because of the backlash of his own companies and his dubious ideas of how he's cut $1 trillion are going to have to be answered for. So he wants to be out of the way.
Well, clearly, obviously, there's a problem paying a pension to somebody who's 250 years old, right?
Well, that never happened.
Yeah,
that's never happened. All of that idea has never happened. The millions and millions and millions of dollars that Trump says is being paid to people that are over 100 years old or over 115 is a lie. It hasn't happened.
Yes, I know.
They are on the books because of an old computer system which defaults somebody 115 years old, puts them in a bracket, 115 years old, but doesn't pay them out any checks. So you do have a storage of names that they've lost track of the death records and things like that. So those names are put in a file, in an old computer file, but those people aren't paid. And that's the source of the huge misinformation. Yeah, they have a whole lot of names of people there that go to hundreds of years old, but they're not getting anything.
And you think about it, because probably the government gets death records anyway, and you don't have to actually send off to the government to say, hey, your 110-year-old grandfather has now just died. You don't have to actually submit any records to the government, because the doctor, the hospital, etc., will actually report that information to the government, and it'll typically will be knocked off. What occurs is, say that guy dies in Italy rather than Virginia, right? That's when that occurs, because now you don't have a record of the death automatically.
Well, what they're saying is, if they don't have anyone 115 years or older is immediately disqualified from even applying for Social Security, unless they can prove. So if you're 120 years old and you can prove you're still alive, then they'll reenact you. But they just put your names on this file. It is a very old computer system that didn't have the capability of removing people, so they just put the people on, like, in a storage area. So it looks as if there's all these old people they're on file, but they're not getting paid.
Yeah. And in fact, so a 115-year-old is, you should be paying them if they're due it, they should be paid it. But I wouldn't mind betting that there's a check every year on their birthday, about their birthday time. Are they still alive?
Well, the big scam is, what nobody's talking about is that the Trump administration wants to make Social Security look as bad as possible, so they can use that as an excuse to privatize the system, which will make enormous amounts of money for anyone who's running that.
Yeah.
So if they privatize it, then money goes into the private hands, and that's not really quite good. There are things that shouldn't be privatized, and Social Security is one of them.
Okay. And moving on, Canada's expecting a smaller hit from Trump's global tariffs. right?
I'm not
And
so sure.
this comes out of a meeting that Susan Holt had with this New Brunswick Premier Susan Holt had with the Prime Minister Mark Carney last Friday, and she spoke on the phone. After he'd spoken on the phone with Donald Trump.
I'm not so sure. Like, Carney seems to have gotten some sort of level of assurances from Trump. We found out that no one knows really what's going on because earlier Doug Ford went down, talked to Ludnick when he was going to threaten to shut off power. He went down to talk to Ludnick. Ludnick told him there was no surprises coming. Just relax. We're going to work it out. Then there was the big surprise of the auto tariffs. So obviously Lutnick didn't know about that.
They back down on the auto tariffs to some.
Well, anyway, so they come up with the auto tariffs. That was a big surprise. Lutnick didn't know. When Ford talked to Lutnick, I just don't know. It was kind of like the answer. Now we've had a conversation with Carney, with Trump, which kind of appears to relieve some of the pressure, and the claim is we might not get nailed as bad or as thoroughly. Our tariffs would be 10 and 15% instead of 25%. But I don't take that to the bank at all because Trump keeps changing his mind, and even his Commerce Secretary Lutnick doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah, and this is the biggest problem, changing minds, right? Because one of the questions, I think that's what's caused the volatility on the stock markets. The changing minds, essentially, we will get, if you said tariffs 25%, now we're doing it, no stopping it, end of story, we get through it, right? It's the, tariffs. Oh, you don't like that? Oh, okay, I won't do it then. Oh, tariffs. Oh, you don't like that? Okay, I won't do it then, right? It's the kind of off again, on again scenario that people don't like. The world doesn't like. The stock market doesn't like.
Investment doesn't like it.
Yes.
That's the big thing. Look at all the American companies that come up here and invested huge money in aluminum, oil and gas, and other things. They don't want to invest here until they know what's going on. They invested based on the USMCA as a North American trading network. And they thought that was written in stone because of, obviously, it was Trump that put a signature on the best possible trade deal of all time. That doesn't seem to be. But now he's backtracked on that and said, "Oh yeah, well it was, but they're cheating. They're cheating all the time."
Mm.
So I don't know. Basically, what the tariffs are for is to stimulate growth inside the country. Trump has recently said he doesn't care if the American people are going to pay more for a car. At least they'll be buying cars made in the United States. Of course, the idea of tariffs can be justified in certain areas. He wants to bring back manufacturing to the United States and offers tariff-free manufacturing if you move your manufacturing into the United States. That's much easier said than done, particularly when the globalization was initiated by the United States and through both Republican and Democratic means. And the free trade, the world free trade and loosening of trade has inarguably helped more than hindered the people of the world, because it's provided them with more and varied products in a global competition.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah.
And the US has done wonders in that regard.
The big argument, though, is, do you tariff your free trade partners in North America, where you already have a very solid network of trade networks here that has made your trade and your country very strong, and the whole North American continent? Do you really want to justify
exactly. It's done wonders for business. It's done wonders for the workforce. It's it's helped a large, and not talking about 2 or 3,000 US people that it's helped. It's helped hundreds of thousands, if not millions of US workers. It's helped stabilize that economy. It means that we know where things, we know where the people who are investing in the car industry, for example, can invest knowing how that is all going to work.
Yeah, and they've made all the investments based on a North American trade network.
Yes.
And now the rules are beginning to change. And for how long will they change?
Yeah.
Will they be reversed back after Trump gets out? So the mistrust of the Trump policy right now, or the unsuredness of the Trump policy right now, is what's shaking things up.
Yeah.
We don't know. Basically, we'll find out what's happening. I'm not so sure that Carney got the right message from Trump, because he changes his mind all the time. So Trump treated him, called him the prime minister. He was very cordial with him. And he seems to have assured him that the tariffs against Canada and possibly Mexico won't be as bad as it first looked. But I don't trust that. But the New Brunswick premier has decided that, yeah, it might not be as bad as we thought. We might get a little bit of reprieve. We may get a few more carve-outs because we already have this UMCA thing going on. I'm not so sure, because tomorrow he may change his mind again.
Yeah. All right. Okay. And this is actually the big problem I think we have with this this whole system right now with the tariffs. He's got his fixed mind that we can get rid of income tax by improving, by tariffs, replacing them with tariffs, and I'm not sure it's going to happen.
Tax is a tax, and tariffs will drive, at least temporarily, drive the price up quite a bit for everything, and that will reduce the spending power of the. So basically, he's just trying to replace income tax with tariff tax. It's still the same tax. It's a tax.
It's a tax. Yeah, it's a tax, and people pay it. And there used to be a concept, but I think Margaret Thatcher introduced the concept that she wanted people to pay less. She wanted people to pay less on their income tax and more on the sales tax. So she created the sales tax at 12.5%, standardized it all. There was no kind of luxury tax, and by doing that, she kind of taxed the how you spend rather than how you earn. Right? I don't know that was necessarily a success either.
No, but what the government needs is needs revenue, obviously. And the United States right now is in a real pickle because they cannot pay down their debt, and they cannot stop the staunch. They have to borrow more and more money all the time. They have to borrow money just to pay the interest on their debt. So this business that Doge was, I suppose, at the heart of it was a good idea to cut the fat, but they're not doing that properly, and they're not doing it with a scalpel, and they're doing it with a chainsaw, and there's, of course, consequences to that. And it's always good to cut back on government waste and things like that, but they're going to replace one tax with another, which this part of the issue is to bring jobs back to the United States, which will take time, and sourcing materials from the United States. How do you source materials that you don't have? That's another.
Yeah, always a problem,
Yeah. That's why the brutal deal in Ukraine for rare earth minerals and other things. That's why he wants also Greenland, own it, exploit it, then it's ours. That kind of thing. It's a brutal.
That's what he wants with Canada as well, because we have things that the US doesn't.
Well, yeah, and they could get as much as they want. That's the big issue here. They get as many of those things from us as they want, without annexing us or taking over us or
Yeah, yeah.
taxing us.
All right. Okay. So moving on. This is our home, say Afghans who are living in Pakistan, who are facing deportation as of today.
Yeah, I included this article, and I've mentioned it before, that the huge migrations that are going around the world, you have upwards of 20 million people as claimed in the United States that are illegals. We have illegals in Canada. Europe is forced with all kinds of migrations. We hear about it all the time about people, these boats coming into Europe and capsizing, boats going across the English Channel and capsizing, full of people. People are on the move. People are on the move out of the Middle East, out of Africa, out of all places. However, this is happening everywhere in the world. It's not just going to countries that are super affluent.
Yeah.
In this particular case, in Pakistan, you have over 2 million Afghanis in Pakistan. Pakistan has now decided to get rid of them. A la ICE, basically. You got to go. You're here illegally. You got to go. You got to go back to Afghanistan.
And these are whole families that are getting deported, including where they've been here for 20 years. This is a guy who, they're focusing on a guy who, Muhammad Lal Khan. He was born in Pakistan. He married in Pakistan. His children were born in Pakistan. He buried his eldest brother in Pakistan. Now they're saying, get out.
Yeah, this population has become a strain. I don't know if it's a political strain or economic strain, probably both. These people are mostly probably Pashtuns because they come from the south of Afghanistan, most likely. So you have a population of 2 million people, probably very associated with the Afghanis and the Taliban. The Taliban probably could move freely in and among them, which could be a problem for the Pakistanis. But probably economics is the biggest thing, and they want these 2 million people out of their country. They already have a high populated country that's not functioning too well. So I brought this up as we hear about ICE all the time.
Well, this individual was basically his family fled after the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, so they've been there a long time.
Yeah, and a lot of them have cards that legitimize their particular refugee status or so. However, just like in the United States, where we have lots and lots of people trying to apply for refugee status and have probably lived in the States probably a generation or two that were illegal, we hear about that all the time in a particular affluent country, and we've heard about this in Europe too.
And
we get massive.
The reason you're pointing it out is because you don't expect it in Pakistan.
Yeah, I wanted to point this out, and I've pointed it out too at other times. What's happened in South America, countries like Chile, where there's massive migrations come through, but they are not successful in getting into the United States. So what happens is they go to the second best or third best place they can, and then they cause problems. We've seen what's happened in Sweden too, where we get a massive amount of people that are out of country coming in. They don't immediately blend in, and what happens is you get crime happening in and among
part of the rise. It's part of the rise of the AfD in Germany, right? Is the fact that for years the AfD and organizations like them have been saying immigrants are destroying our nation.
Well, this is happening in more modest countries like Pakistan.
Oh yeah.
Let me say this: like Pakistan is no hell to live in, but it's better than Afghanistan. So that's the Afghanis who live there. don't want to go back to Afghanistan. Not only have they just established themselves for maybe a generation or two already in Pakistan, but there are more Afghanis trying to get into Pakistan. So Pakistan says
Well,
no. I don't think Pakistan is going to build a wall between it and Afghanistan, but that situation is you have people migrating to someplace better, and to think that Pakistan is better than Afghanistan, makes you think.
Yeah, and again, this guy's 36. Khan is 36, and he was born in Pakistan. So, to all intents and purposes, he should be a Pakistani citizen. But because he's of Afghani origin, he's now up for deportation.
Well, not necessarily. If you're born in that country, you're allowed to be a citizen of that country if your family comes from outside. And we find this in a lot of other countries, like in Thailand, for instance.
Many other
all kinds of different people living, particularly in the north, that are ethnic groups that are allowed to live there, but not allowed to become a citizen.
Yeah. It's interesting, for example, we explored it a while back, going to somewhere like India. My wife's mother was born in India, but she wouldn't have rights in India.
Yeah. So we can't judge the rights of citizenship on how we do it here.
Yeah. Exactly.
But my whole point in putting this article is there is people of moving away, even if it's like some people from Afghanistan will try to make it all the way to North America or Europe, but others will go to just a closer, more safer spot.
Yeah.
When the great migrations happened out of Ireland after the famine, many of them never got as far any farther than England. They got as far as England, never got on the boat to go to America or Australia or Canada.
Yeah.
So lots of people just go to the next safest place or the next better place than where
many of those Irish that moved to the mainland, British mainland, and now as English as anybody, even though they've got an Irish name.
Oh, Lennon, McCartney, Harrison, those are all, I think, Irish names, aren't they? Or I'm not quite sure, but
McCartney, I believe is, yeah.
Yeah. So the very idea that that people are moving all over the place, and even humble countries like Pakistan or Chile or Ecuador all have a problem of new migrants.
Yeah.
All right. And that was my point of putting that out.
Oh, yeah, I know. Absolutely. So we've got 3 comments and then I'll have to go. So good morning from Betty. Syria, children and women being murdered. Okay. I don't know that I've seen that one.
Reference to what? Israeli bombings or?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. There were some Syrians. There have been issues, remember, in refugee camps. There's always things going on in refugee camps of undesirable.
Well, you still have a big ISIS problem right in the middle of the country too, and we know how brutal they can be.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to end up having to go because I'm at the landlord and tenant board this morning.
Okay. Well, I hope you don't get thrown out of your house.
I won't. And actually, nobody's getting thrown out of their house. It's a compensation thing about illegal eviction. A tenant was illegally evicted, so we're fighting for her to get compensation she deserves.
Good show. I hope you're successful.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I hope we're successful. We were successful the other month to the tune of $20,000.
Good show.
So it's not all one-sided here. Yes, we and most tenants will agree that bad tenants need to be thrown out. But as you know, because those people who don't pay should be gone.
Sure, it gives all tenants a bad name.
Exactly. And when it's people who have always paid their rent on time, they've never missed a payment, who are illegally evicted, that's a problem.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, well, I'm sure we'll talk about that at a future time. All right. So, hey, thank you, everybody, and have a great day. And Dave?
Without further ado, I bid you adieu. Pray for peace. Don't forget God.